Meantime, I want to switch gears because Russia reportedly launching 3 ballistic missiles and 80 attack drones overnight, hitting 12 locations, injuring 6. This is coming as Russia and Ukraine, the officials, will meet in Istanbul today for the second round of direct peace talks. Last week, Ukraine launched a massive drone strike on Russia, targeting 5 air bases and destroying more than 40 warplanes. President Trump saying the White House was not informed about the Ukraine strike before it happened. I want to get your thoughts on where we stand. I mean, President Trump has been very clear that he wants to see a ceasefire. He wants to see peace here, yet as a result of escalations that happen from both sides, that seems more and more difficult to achieve every day.
It is, but at the same time, I think the Ukrainian operation in its sophistication and surprise nature is an important step for Ukraine to gain some leverage in these peace talks. There had been a kind of pervasive narrative, largely propagated by the Russians themselves, that Russian victory was inevitable, that Putin was 100 feet high and was winning the war, and Ukraine should just cave on every element. Now, that's not what President Trump wants. He wants to get to a reasonable deal, maybe a deal in which both sides are equally unhappy, but that can endure, that can end the killing, as he has said repeatedly. And so by demonstrating these very sophisticated capabilities, I think Ukraine gains that leverage. Maybe Putin will say, you know, I don't want to lose a third of my bomber fleet every other week, and so maybe I should make some concessions as well. It might get us closer to a deal.
Victoria, when you say that both sides would be equally unhappy to be, able to achieve a deal, I hear you on that. And obviously there would have to be some lines drawn and some territories figured out. And that would probably be the biggest sticking point. Russia's going to want more than what Ukraine is willing to give. How does that shake out?
No, that's going to be the real kind of grind, the slog, if you will, of the negotiations, is figuring out exactly where those lines go and then making sure Ukraine can defend its borders so that Russia is not emboldened to do this again. That's the key point. We've had Russia massing some troops near the border with Finland, a new NATO member. That's deeply dangerous. And so the key, I think, for the Trump administration is to make sure Putin and Russia are deterred, that they sort of take whatever it is they're going to get out of this deal, and then they don't do it again. They don't threaten a NATO member, because that would then involve the United States.
Right. Liz?
Victoria, we've heard a lot several months ago, or weeks ago anyway, about the minerals deal that the United States was trying to strike with Ukraine. We haven't heard much about that lately, and I understand it'll take some time to get up and running. But how do you assess that partnership and the fact that, A, we definitely need some of the rare earths and minerals that Ukraine presumably has, and B, I thought it was kind of a brilliant idea to have America have an interest in Ukraine and in defending Ukraine, but we don't hear much about it anymore. What's your assessment of that?
Well, my hope is it's just kind of quietly progressing, and it's not in the headlines because it's not actually on fire at the moment. But it is, as you said, a great model. This should replace what we did with the broken USAID system of just handing out American taxpayer dollars like candy, like disinterested charity. No, this should be an investment on the part of the U.S. taxpayer, which, yes, is good for Ukraine, will provide income for Ukraine, but also will provide the United States with those critical minerals that we need for high-tech manufacturing, which we should be doing here at home, not in China. And so that should be a win-win, and then we could apply it to the developing world. I mean, this would be a great model for a lot of countries in Africa, for example, or Latin America, which need U.S. engagement.
I want to switch gears to this as well. The most recent Israel-Hamas hostage deal, Victoria, is now in doubt after Hamas added last-minute demands, including a complete withdrawal from the Gaza Strip and a change to the hostage proposal. Special envoy Steve Witkoff calling Hamas's response, quote, unacceptable. To a certain degree, I'm not surprised by this. They always continue to change the terms and not honor what they promised before. And I'm talking about Hamas here. So your reaction on how to end this once and for all as well?
Yeah, no, Hamas is simply not a reasonable actor. They're the ones who started this on October 7th and have been dragging out this war ever since, preventing humanitarian assistance from getting to the Palestinians in Gaza. and holding these hostages now for well over 500 days. It's absolutely disgraceful. And rather than putting pressure on Israel, which we saw out of our European allies, out of the UK, out of France over the weekend, condemning Israel for what's happening, when Hamas is the ones that started this, Hamas is the ones who are holding those innocents hostage. And they are the ones who should be pressured. And I think the administration should send that message to our Qatari and Egyptian allies. Look, this isn't a negotiation anymore. These are terms that are being laid out. If anyone wants to survive in the Hamas leadership, then they need to lay down their arms, surrender, and give the hostages back. And then we can talk.
Yeah.
But the idea that we're getting into some kind of diplomatic dance with these terrorists is ridiculous.
And I want to stick with the region because the White House is urging Iran to accept terms of its nuclear deal after a report from the International Atomic Energy Agency found that Iran is swiftly increasing its stockpile of near weapons grade enriched uranium. The IAEA reporting a nearly 50% increase in Iran's stockpile since February. But President Trump has made it very clear Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon. So where do talks go from here? Because Iran certainly has its interests. And while I understand that they want to appear as if they are appeasing the president, I don't see them abandoning their interest either.
No, they're not. And we also last week had that Austrian intel report about the progress they're making with their nuclear program. And so the clock is ticking here. And I think the president has been right to pursue diplomacy, to see what might be possible with the Iranian regime. He did that in the first term as well. He took over a year to examine the situation. Unfortunately, I don't think we have that much time this go around because there was so much progress made on their nuclear file during the Biden administration. So, the president's going to have to make a decision. Does he feel that there's enough in this deal to dismantle their ability to enrich to this level, to verify that they're no longer pursuing a nuclear weapon, or does he need to take another kind of action? So, that's the big decision in front of him. I absolutely trust him to prevent the Iranians from getting a nuclear weapon. That is a direct threat to the United States, not just to our regional allies, but to us. That's why he's focusing on the Golden Dome, but that's not here yet. Yeah. So we need to stop them from getting this nuclear weapon.
Victoria, thank you so much. Victoria Coates, great to see you this morning.
Thank you.